thank you so much, first of all, for no.
Yeah, do it by yourself.
Please don't do that. Okay, first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your presentations, and I think I can speak for a lot of us to say that there are a lot of things that we see across countries, across all the things that we're researching. It's all similar, and I think as I'll be talking about my presentation, a lot of the things do connect, and it's important to visualize what that looks like on the ground. Okay, so while I was in Honduras, I talked to a lot of indigenous movements, a lot of campesino and like on the ground movements, and the first one that I talked to was the Plataforma Agraria and COPA, and COPA is Coordination de Organizaciones Populares de Bajo Aragón, and what was happening in this region specifically was they were doing a land back movement completely. They had taken over this, not taken over, but reclaimed this land that was originally theirs in the first place. It's an African palm plantation, and they were, sorry, oh my gosh. They had created, houses and taken kind of from the land what they needed, and they expressed first and foremost that this land was theirs. They showed an agreement that was created in the 1900s of even though the government has no real legitimacy in this, but an actual treaty per se that showed documentation that this land was theirs, and then they were forcibly displaced by companies that were coming in that were doing cultivation of the African palm, but also in taking back the land, they expressed that they are not here for the monetary reasons that the government or other entities paint them as it's they're taking over this for economic reasons. They're repurposing the land and they're reusing it, taking down some of the African palm, which is extremely lucrative, and building actual agriculture that they can use to eat, as well as they're now community building. The first thing that they have done, a lot of their children have not been able to go to proper education institutions since the start of the pandemic, and they have started outsourcing that kind of labor and have invited teachers to come into the community, and have now even set up, this is the first house that they built with concrete and cement, and all of this is through their own labor without the support of the government, that they've been able to put water lines and power lines through this place, and then so this whole area houses about 150 families, which is about 2,000 people that are living here and are co-creating their space, but something also important to note, that even with them trying to reclaim their land, the large amounts of insecurity and violence that they still face today. Since the start of 2023, 2 of their leaders have been killed, and when we went to meet with the community, one of their leaders was in hiding, and we got to talk to them, but we also got to talk to the widow of one of the leaders that had been killed. And this is February 2023. This was about 2-3 weeks before we had gone there, and this is still still occurring. While we were there, even there was a man in a van that just so happened to park there and so happened to get out of his car and watch us while we were touring the place with them. And it's the violence, it's the ongoing violence that they face to be able to reclaim and take back what is rightfully theirs. Okay, and then can you play the video real quick? Oh God, can you turn on the volume?
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to first show you the beauty of this land, and this second community that we went to go talk to is the Garifuna community in Trompo de la Cruz. And this is an Afro-Indigenous community, and their history is incredibly interesting, and how they were able to kind of this mixture of like indigenous communities and also freed men from the Caribbean, and that now resulted in the Garifuna community. We went to go talk to Ofrene, which is La Fraternidad, the Black Fraternity Organization of Honduras. And again, once again, their land is being taken by hotels, and very interestingly by a national park that has been, decided that it's going to be on their land just to protect the agriculture of it, not the agriculture, but the environmental integrity of it. But it's once again retaking the land that they had given back to the Garifuna community, and especially the hotel that we saw was literally, 0.25 miles away from the place that we went to go visit. And what they had talked about especially was this court case of the Inter-American Court. The Inter-American Court case was decided in 2015, and like Lulu and the previous group talked about, this was kind of at the peak of when everything is happening, and the Inter-American Court is ruling that, this is their land. For this next section, I'll talk about the two communities that have to deal with mining. And first big thing about this is when we talked about, in the 2010 of, Honduras is open for business. This is in 2013, Lobo, which is the conservative government that came up after the coup. He implemented this law in 2013 saying that, open pit mining is great. Everyone can come in and do open pit mining. And these are the results that are still being seen today. So one of them was the Guapinol community, and the mine that is there is Los Pinares mine. And this mine is the extraction facility for the mine is operating with no permit and absolutely no permission from anyone. And even the mine permit is limited and is not being actually done the way that it's supposed to. And what is being said by the people is that they're coming in here and displacing the community, but also contaminating their water. And one of the things that they had tested the water, and that from the extraction coming out of the mine, there's cyanide in the water now, and it's an iron ore plant, but cyanide is not a chemical that is used for iron ore. It's more used for gold, so the community doesn't even know what's being mined there. And this is like, I can play you that video right now, but yeah, can you play the video, please? Okay, so if you see in the video, you can see the tree line. You would imagine that, beyond that tree line would be just, more trees, forest, jungle. What is beyond that tree line as we crossed the river was this huge extraction facility. It was just absolutely gigantic in the middle of what is their land. And, it just shows like the very clear extraction mentality that's going on, and just complete disregard for this environmental preservation narrative that they're creating. And this is the Asegualpa community. And for this one, once again, a byproduct of all the neoliberal reforms that are happening. And this case is particularly horrifying, like every single case. But what you can see kind of a picture of the mine, but this mine has just completely displaced and uprooted the community to a space that is so deeply inaccessible that you have to drive maybe like an hour up the mountain to be able, through a road that's not paved in any way. And they have desecrated their sacred cemetery, a cemetery that was once there on top of the mine. The what is the equivalent of Health and Human Services has said that it was a health hazard, and so the mine actually ripped out the cemetery that had been there for hundreds of years and did not completely rebury the bodies. This is the mine's, poor attempt at a new cemetery for the people, but it's absolutely not true. And they, these are now unmarked graves. People don't know where their family ones are. They don't know where their loved ones are. They've just completely gone in there and erased their history. And beyond that, this is one of like the more ideas of when they say, why don't you want development, or why do you not care about development? It's literally, this is not the development that the people their narrative overall was that of they had no agency in what was going on, which is absolutely ridiculous. They continue to support U.S. corporations, right now, and at so many points before of this kind of they continue to uplift this development idea, and they also deny blatantly what's going on. One of the key things that they said to us when we brought up the case of the campesino community was, you can never believe these people. That is something that they said directly to us without any regard for what we had just witnessed or what is going on in the actual communities. And also as we pushed back on why do you continue to fund these like military powers? It doesn't work. It doesn't create the security that you had intended. And they once again throw up their hands and say, we have these ideas and we think they work. And like it was a very frustrating conversation, to say the least. But their rhetoric overall was, this anti-Xiomara like has no idea what she's doing, kind of thing. And also when they talked about, like, we can't really do much, but if we look at Twitter, which is the platform that they usually like to do, one tweet is exponential in its power, in its ability to, completely like blindside the country and undermine what's going on. And they have no recognition of that. They don't recognize anything that they do, and they just have that continued support for what's going on. And and when we talk to them, these are all U.S. companies. These are all Canadian companies that are coming in here and continuing to create this idea of development. And there is just like nothing that they want to acknowledge that they have agency in. And these are some solidarity actions that you can take. There's like links. There's just like a what's it called? Like, it's just a Google Docs with a bunch of links, and then you can find the sign-on letter to like denounce things like the Aura minerals to create to sign on to that letter, but also things like the Berta Act that Lulu had talked about, and the Ofrene Act, which just calls for the installation of that commission that I talked about earlier, and some other sign-on letters that you can do to express solidarity with the people of Honduras, and also with the upcoming trial. Like, these are all groups and organizations that have raised those alarm bells from the very beginning, and as you know, Lulu continues her work and we all continue our work in that group, is standing in solidarity with the group, with the people of Honduras and their indictment of what continues to be done.